Thank you, Vani, for these wonderful words of introduction. I must say I'm greatly blessed in life with wonderful sets of parents, parents-in-law, lovely family. Vani also being my backbone, support, inspiration for all the things I do. Also, I've been very fortunate to come under various teachers, masters who have been guiding me on the path. So let's begin with a prayer. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Yam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we embark on the journey together, on the journey of self-knowledge. May we have the energy to overcome the obstacles on the path. May the light of wisdom dissolve any differences, animosity, keeping our minds focused on the truth. Om, peace, peace, and peace. So, Vani gave us this title of loss and gain. And again, this is inspired by one of those conversations from I Am That by Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj. As we examine all our transactions in the world, whatever transactions we go through every day, there is always an exchange of material or money or emotions in every action, every activity that happens. In this process, we always see there is a loss and gain that is happening. As the very famous saying in English goes, one man's loss is another person's gain. So this loss and gain is very prominent, not only in business circles, but also very, very prominent in political circles. You have people set up, a common enemy becomes, a friend, they say, isn't it? So take, for example, any simple transaction of buying some groceries, rice or wheat or anything from the grocery store. So I have to pay money, so I lose money, but I gain some rice or wheat from that transaction. Similarly, the grocery store owner loses some stock of his rice or wheat, but gains money. Now, one may say that the purpose for which the grocery store has the stock is for business. But would he want to lose that stock for a loss? Obviously, no, isn't it? So, in every transaction, there is a loss on one side and there is a gain on the other side. And this is a normal thing in business, in even in politics. This happens very, very blatantly, and it also happens in day-to-day transactions, in our day-to-day engagement with people, in our relationships. When I negotiate and have my way with one of my family members, I have gained, but the other person has lost. Or if when I give in to the needs and the wishes of one more family or member or a friend, now one person gains, the other person loses. This loss and gain, is it limited to two separate people? Is it limited to two separate people? Or do we experience loss and gain within ourselves as well? Okay. So this is what we have to consider. On one side, there is loss and gain in every activity, every transaction that we have engaged with the world. On the other side, we also have to explore what is the loss and gain for ourselves within ourselves. For example, within ourselves, let's take that I am a student and I am working to pass a degree exam. So I study hard. I give up games for 6 months in order to put in extra effort, extra time for studies, which normally happens in the last 3 to 5 months of the exam time, isn't it? So, on one side, I have lost playing cricket in the evening with friends. On the other side, I have gained in my effort, gained time to put my effort to study well for my degree exam. So even within us, there is this loss and gain. And this is where actually goal setting comes in a very big way. We all have goals in our life, little ones or big ones, short-term ones or long-term ones. But then what is the goal intended to do? What is the goal intended to do? It is intended to do two things. So in this is now when we go into the spiritual aspect, is there a loss and gain in my spiritual quest as well? That is a question that we have to also ask. Is it true that I have to give up something for spirituality? Is it true that I have to give up something for self-knowledge, awareness, or it's always a gain-gain situation? These are some things that we will explore in today's session. Therefore, let us examine, getting back to goal setting, there is an important role that goal setting plays in our life. It goes by different names. In business world and in the psychological world, we say it is goals. Whereas in the spiritual world, we say it is sankalpa, a resolve. Even in our lives, daily lives, we go ahead and do some resolutions, especially New Year resolutions. Come 31st December, we are all ready with New Year resolutions for the next year. So why do we need goal settings? There are two reasons that are very, very important that we need goal settings. So would anyone like to share and say what is the role in goal setting in life, and in sadhana? Is there a necessity to set goals for us? Yeah, you will be able to unmute and speak if you want to just share your ideas. You're most welcome.
I think it is required so that some sort of anything which is not measured cannot be improved. So we have to set some standard, some goal, and how do we measure and progress on that.
Okay. Thank you, Janki Ramji. In order to measure progress, in order to progress, we need to measure something. So that is why goal setting is important. Now, Ramamani ji is also saying on the chat window, to achieve something, we need to be determined, hence goals are needed. Yes.
Goal is more important in order to make choices, because in life there are too many things to be done. Only a goal will allow you to go towards a particular direction.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you, Srinivas Murthy ji. Yeah, in order to prioritize a few things out of so many things that are available at our disposal, we need to have a goal. We need to have a goal or a few goals so that our mind does not go astray. That's wonderful. Anyone else? Nirmala ji is saying, only if you set some goals, you'll be focused towards it. You will make the right choices. Wonderful. Now, all of these cover one aspect of it. The other aspect is, I'll tell you what this is. One aspect is the goals to be focused, to prioritize. All of these goals cannot be achieved unless setting the goal is one part, but working on it is another part, isn't it? So the goals is the first step to inspire us, to motivate us, to get up from our chairs, to get up from our bed and get into action. Otherwise, we will be where we are psychologically. Oh, this is enough. I have achieved this. So if we have something in front of us, we will get up we will overcome our tamas, our laziness, through this goal setting. That is one part. Second is, goals show or hold a promise for us in the future that we can look forward to. Otherwise, we'll get caught in what Dr. Stephen Covey calls the activity trap. Day in and day out, the routine, everyday routine. We get up in the morning, brush our teeth, go to work, then engage, set some goals, achieve some deadlines, come back, interact with the family, have lunch, have dinner. This years pass by without any semblance of achievement because we get caught in the routine. So if we want to achieve something different from what we have today, we have to think and act differently, and that's where goal setting comes very handy. And so goal settings have two prominent functions. One is a promise for the future. Second is, for today, it motivates us to get up from our seats and get into action to take one step closer to the goal. It is not possible to achieve all goals immediately, but it is definitely possible every day to take one step, one action, one planning that will take us one step closer to the goal. So it keeps us on our toes. Now, similar thing happens even in spirituality. Now, for whom is the goal applicable? It is for me when I think, oh, I want to get out. The first step to wanting to achieve something that is big, that is beyond me. What is the first step to achieve something beyond me? When will I have a need for a spiritual quest, a spiritual goal? When do you think we will have a need for the spiritual quest or a spiritual goal? There is one trigger that will happen. That is one trigger that makes it happen, rather. What would you say? If I'm contented where I am, will I want to achieve something? Will I want to move on? No, isn't it? So that level of discontentment, a slight level of discontent, that means what? I must be fed up or discontented with the way I am leading and living life today. It doesn't mean I have to be depressed. In order to understand this, we must look at our lives as we live today. How do we live our lives today? Each one, this is a very personal question for each one of us. And each one of us can ask this question to ourselves and answer it for ourselves. We cannot compare it with anybody else. Suppose I ask myself, how am I living this life today? Is it in the vast ocean of ignorance, or am I living life in awareness? Then obviously, if I'm fed up, quote unquote fed up, not fed up with life, but fed up or discontented, I would use the word discontented more, a slightly softer version, but still the power of discontentment is so high that it does not allow me to remain status quo. Dr. Abdul Kalam once said that dream is not when you sleep, but true dream is what doesn't allow you to sleep. So that is the power of discontentment. If I'm very much discontented with the way I am living, this routine life, this ignorant life, this swaying between one extreme and the other, which is what? Sometimes happy, sometimes sad. Sometimes we undergo profit, sometimes we undergo loss, sometimes success, sometimes failure. In all this, what happens? The mind, I am swayed with the emotions to and fro, from left to right, one extreme to the other. My mind keeps on swaying. When I am successful, I am elated. When I encounter failure, I am dejected. So when I am discontented with the way I am living today, with these variations, and search for a solution which I think is a permanent solution for these variations, to overcome these variations, then I will look at some spiritual goal. But remember, this goal is for whom? It is for the person who is discontented with his life today. By his, I also mean her, because it makes it easier, or we will use the plurality, our, and things like that. Okay. So once this discontentment happens, then there is this trigger. Oh, I want to achieve something more. But there is a flaw there. Flaw in the sense, a danger in trying to attempt something in the future by setting a goal. So, if we have all eyes on the future, what happens? Even when we set a business goal or a professional goal or a life goal, where is our first attention? Where should our first attention be? If I have to go from Bangalore to Delhi, I plan the trip from Bangalore to Delhi and then start the action. I book the ticket and all that. Then where should my attention be from where I am today, where I have to start, isn't it? So this is a very crucial point even on a spiritual journey. In putting forth a spiritual goal, oh, I want to achieve Satchit Ananda. I want to achieve the self. Something that is very grand, something that is very good, because I'm discontented with myself. Then I start imagining and visualizing a lot of those things. What will I be doing if I focus my mind 100% there in the future? I will actually be escaping from my present condition, which will not solve my present state. Isn't it? So, in order to, we do need the goal in initial planning. That is, as they say in leadership terms, we have to plan our work. And when we start working the plan, we have to start from where we are and start from our present condition. So what is my present condition? My present condition is bogged by two things: me and mine. isn't it? Now, if my present condition is not bound by these two factors, me and mine, then I will not even look at, oh, there is a possibility of overcoming this state, achieving happiness, being happy beyond me and mine. This me and mine is causing a lot of anxieties, sorrows. So let me look at, bliss, Satchitananda, truth, awareness, bliss. Now, where does this me and mine originate? Where does this originate? Would somebody like to share? Unmute and speak.
Body, mind, and intellect.
Nirmala is chatting from the body, mind, intellect. Thank you. Anybody? When I say my wife, when I say my job, when I say my house, this feeling of mine, where does it indicate? Where does it originate? What do we mean when we say my husband, my wife, my brother, my sister, my father? We mean this body's father, mother, wife, husband, isn't it? So the reference of mine is this body and mind. When you say this body, it's the whole body, mind, intellect complex.
For the asset possession.
Possession, those are roles that we play. Yes. Thank you, Padmini. So when we look at this and see that when my reference is this body, then this strong feeling of mine or possessiveness comes into picture, and the reference is my body. And what about me? There is one funny thing about this me and I. There is this very funny thing. Suppose I show this, we can say this is a computer mouse. Okay, this computer mouse, when I say this is a mouse, then it is common to everybody who knows this. For all the people who are in this room, virtual room, we know everyone will have the same idea or the same opinion that this is a computer mouse, wireless mouse. Okay, so when I show an object, everyone will be on the same page about the object. When I say this is my spectacles, everyone in the room will agree that this is my spectacles. But what about when I say I? When I say I, what I means to me, is it the same as what I means to you? This spectacles, what this spectacles means to me, it is my spectacles, it's a tool for me to improve my vision. It means the same to each and every person who has assembled in this room, correct? So any object that we take, we can all agree, everyone can agree that it means the same to everyone. Whereas when we say I, can we agree that what I means to me is the same as what I means to Janki Ramji? Or can Rajamma auntie also say what I means to her is the same as what I means to me? Or can Padmini say that? No, because what I means to each one of us is different. And this is where the confusion is. What I means to me is different from what I means to you, what I means to Prasanna, what I means to Rajamma auntie, what I means to Malti ji, what I means to Jankiram ji. Why is that? There is one truth behind this. Why I means different to different people. Because I is not an object like the specks. No two people can agree on what I is. This can be a trigger for self-investigation or a source of immense conflict. This is where even on the spiritual path we have to be extremely careful. If I just start justifying my I is right and your concept of I is wrong, then you and I will start quarreling with each other. On the other hand, if I use that difference, oh, why is Chris Mali saying I for him is like this and I experience for me is like this? So, what is the truth behind the difference in these two experiences? What is real I? This can pave way to introspection. Now, in the process of this journey to find out the nature of I, we will also lose many things, but gain only one thing. And that we'll figure out before we get there. That is why even in this spiritual journey, there is a loss and there is a gain, and both these loss and gain are to be applied in quotes, inverted commas. Now, me and mine originate from one thing. That is from the mind. What is the mind? Mind is just a spread of canvas in time, a sequence of events occurring one after another in succession without any interruption, and our reactions to it forming impressions on the mind. Now this memory, what we call memory as impressions formed due to the sequence of events happening one after the other, they are essential, no doubt. They are very essential for our day-to-day activities, survival. But where does it become an obstacle? When does it become a danger? When it acts as an automatic reflex and dominates our behavior. Many times when Mani and I are having a conversation, I have a tendency to overreact, and she gently points out that I am reacting. What happens? What is happening there? My memory patterns of the past are immediately coming up and providing a reflex action to what the other person is saying, Vani is saying, and reacting and taking over my behavior. So if we keep these memories for functional reasons, that means if I go step out from my house and go to a shop, then I need the memory to know the path back home. Otherwise, I'll get lost. Okay. So as long as I use this memory, which is a very important functional tool as a functional requirement of my day-to-day living, there is no problem with it. But when this becomes an automatic reflex, that means the memories of past pains and pleasures, hurts and joys and sorrows. Now, all of these are useful because tomorrow you will want to avoid the hurt and sorrow, and you might want to withdraw. You might be careful. You might not you want to get exploited. But if it becomes an automatic behavioral response or a reflex action, then your present action is not dictated by what is happening in the present, but by a series of events triggered by the past. So we are always acting from the perspective of the past, from the pains and pleasures of the past, instead of actually acting from the merit of the present situation. So he hurt me, I am hurt because he said something last year. So then this is my ego, my hurt. So me and mine actually comes from the memory patterns that are etched from ages. And if we are spiritually inclined, from several lifetimes. Even if you set aside spirituality aside, previous lives aside, right from the time we are born, there are many, many impressions from our childhood till today. It used to be a common practice in our childhood when our mothers used to say, "Hey, gumaya bartane tinbudu," in order to make us eat. Oh, there is this notorious fellow who will come and take you away. Please eat your lunch quick. So somewhere this past memory of fear might, if it is deeply etched, we slowly overcome it with time. But for some reason, if my tendency is such that I have not been able to overcome that, then today, even if I see a small animal, a tame animal, I will get triggered by fear. That is the past memory acting as a reflex in the present condition. But what is the right action in the present condition? To look at what is it. Okay, it is just a cat, home cat, neighbor's cat coming in. I just allow it to go. It will go away if I step back. Or if it's doing something, I can chase it. So what I am today, is it of my past? I mean the actions and behavior, or is it in the present? Invariably, it is based on the memory patterns, and that's why me and mine have a deep-rooted origin in our memory patterns. Memory patterns of pain, pleasure, hurt, joy, sorrows, and all of those emotions. Is it possible to overcome them? How deep, how wide, how long, how big, how tall is this bundle of memory pattern? Can I pick one by one and overcome them? Or the reflex action is simply because of my over attachment with this body mind complex. And if I address this one little thing, is the entire attachment or the reflex action being addressed? Consider a garbage bin. When we dispose it, would we just try and sort out one by one and dispose it, or would we just dispose the whole bin together? We wouldn't want to put our hand inside the garbage bin to sort out the garbage. Our hands will get dirty again. So no matter what the garbage is, it is still a garbage. So we don't have to sort out garbage one by one. Of course, don't take it in the context of recycling and reuse, because that has a different function altogether. These memory patterns, they have the same function to trigger reflex action in you unless you are watchful. So don't try to sort the memory patterns. We'll be putting our hand into a whole pile of Pandora's box. What is therefore the alternate approach that we can take?
The alternative approach is that you dispose with the assumption that I am not the body, mind, and intellect. and always keep make strong yourself. I am the pure conscious. I am Atman.
Is disposing possible? Thank you, Srinivas Murthy.
Thank you.
Is disposing possible
Yeah,
in
in a phased manner, it's possible. May not be immediately, but almost with one thought.
okay, please watch this. Srinivas Murthy is saying that take the approach of I am not the body, mind, intellect, and discard this memory. That means throw it away. Now, will it be possible to empty the memory like that?
When you are transacting the world, we should have the body mind complex. But when you are yourself, then you should always think, I am not the body mind. That in that way we have to live in the world.
Wonderful. So therefore, thank you. Srinivas Murthy is saying when we transact in the world, we have to have the identity of I am the body, use the body mind complex for getting the work done, but internally we should know that I am not the body mind complex. Here is a slight actual fineness to this. The memory cannot be discarded because memory, we are our memory. It's okay. Distract. We are our memory. If we so Ramamani is saying we need to detach from the attachment that will solve many issues. Okay, thank you, ma'am. So when we are today, we are with a set of memories, and when we say a set, this is an infinite ocean of memory, and the memory doesn't stop because every minute we are adding a drop to that ocean that will add up. So when we say I am not the body mind, can I say I will discard the memory? Whether I say detach or discard or throw away. You see, in the case of garbage, it's a physical item that can be thrown away. Whereas in the case of memory, it is an integral part of our life. And memory by itself is not the culprit. It is useful. Like we discussed earlier, it is useful for functional reasons. But where is the problem? The problem is that being a reflex action for our present behavior. So where should we address? We should address the reflex action of our present behavior. And how do we address it? How can we address the reflex action? The only way to address the reflex action is to understand that I am not the memory. From what point? From the behavioral perspective, from triggering the reaction. So if I'm not the body, mind, intellect, I become the observer. So what should happen? That observer, from that which is the observer, must become the object of observation. Your ego, which is a bundle of memories, is reacting and is saying, I am hurt, I need to talk back, I need to raise my voice and shout, or he is too strong, I must keep quiet. Both of these are the same ego in different forms. Either I am timid, I just keep quiet when the other person is more powerful than me, or I overpower them. If I feel powerful, I will react, pounce on them. Or if I feel somewhere intermediate, I will choose soft targets. Do we know what soft targets is? Somebody, anger on somebody else, I take it on somebody else. In the office, I can't shout at my manager, so I'll come back home and shout at my wife and children. So my wife and children become soft targets. This is the same ego. So the ego being on the driver's seat, in the position of the observer must become the object of observation. What is witnessing? What I thought was the observer now becomes the object of observation. My reflex action, my anger was actually the driver, was the observer looking at my boss, my work, or some situation and reacting. So that ego was the observer and driving my body mind into action. Now that ego, which is just a bundle of memories associated with the body, attached to the body, identified with the body, now that bundle of memories and attachment must become the object of observation. That means what? I must step behind one level or one level higher to be able to observe the working of my memory or mind and body. When we do that, we will clearly see that this is a game mind is playing for its own survival. We had the reaction, the behavior, the action that we were once upon a time justifying falls away in the light of seeing from the witness, which is beyond or above, behind these body-mind complex, these virtual actor. Do we see this? As long as we are within the framework of the body, mind, intellect, we will be swayed by the vagaries of body, mind, intellect. If we have to investigate the mind, if we have to investigate the memory and the ego, we can't investigate it from being within the field of the mind. You have to step back or step above the mind in order to observe the mind. What does that mean then? It clearly means I am not the body or the mind or the intellect. If I'm able to observe my own body, mind, intellect, just as I'm able to observe some sensations in the body, I will be able to observe my own thoughts, feelings, and emotions. I will also be able to observe how my memory patterns play tricks on creating a reflex action in my present behavior, which is actually the game the ego is playing. Then once this memory pattern and the reflex action becomes the object of observation, then that fellow gets caught. The witness clearly knows, sees, and once the witness knows and sees, it clearly understands that this is only a game that is being played. So it is undisturbed. So if there is no attention paid to a mischief maker, how long will the mischief carry on? If a child is creating mischief in order to grab attention, it will continue to play mischief as long as we give attention to it. If we stop paying attention to it, just observe without any particular attention, how long will the child play mischief? Maybe by its own habit, another minute or 2 or 5 minutes. And then once it understands nobody is paying attention to it, it will quieten and go away. So we cannot remove memory, we cannot remove memory patterns, we cannot discard them. We can only stop giving undue attention to it. In the words of Sri Muji, who is the disciple of Papaji, he says, stop giving 5-star treatment to your thoughts, memories. If anybody gets 5-star treatment free of cost, then that fellow will make his home in our house only, which is our mind. Isn't it so? So stopping paying attention doesn't come by actually trying to force our attention away. It comes by actually understanding clearly that this fellow is limited. Bele beyala. This fellow's game will not work. His mischief won't work. I am beyond it is the discrimination, the wisdom that must come. Not that I am not going to be swayed by it. That is the power of will. Power of will not work for long. I will stand as a rock, let any wave come and hit me. That is one way of standing, approach. But then the other approach is, I am beyond that wave. I can observe the wave from the top of the building, lighthouse, and the waves do not impact me. It doesn't impact the observer. It will go and do its job on the shores and then do it. So all of these have a role to play in the world, but it does not need to have a role to impact my behavior, my life as an observer. This is the key.
I am reminded of that Upadesha Sara, Manasam tu kim margane krute, naiva manasam marga arjavat. I think that also substantiates what you have been narrating.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Nagarajji. Once we do this, now when we talk, we will address one last few 2 or 3 points and then conclude the session. The first part, that is there a position from which there is no loss, no gain? That is the position of the observer or the witness. Any other position lower down the stream, there is relative loss or gain either to oneself or the other, or within oneself on one thing, for one or the other. So the solution to loss and gain individually must be beyond loss and gain. The solution to loss is not to get profit, because profit also will not stay. Spiritually speaking, this is what we mean. Anything that is acquired, we are not talking of transactions here, please. Anything that is acquired, if I gain something, I will lose it, because loss and gain are over a period of time. Therefore, if we have to, I have to gain and the other person has to lose, is one kind of response. I gain and the other person lose. Then as I mature a little bit in life, I will go ahead and say, okay, I want the other person to gain from me. There is also a bit of ego there, though it's moving towards a sattvic ego. That means, let me help the person. I want the person to gain from me. Then if you go a step further, I want the world to gain from me. I want to serve the world. Now, if I have to impact the world, how many people, how many objects can I impact at the level of the world? One at a time only. And when I do one at a time, then how many can I address in a lifetime? Maybe a few hundreds or thousands or perhaps lakhs. So, from the spiritual perspective, of course, what action is required immediately to overcome suffering, pain, misery, and sorrow, that must be addressed at the action level at the world. But from the spiritual perspective, how can I impact the entire world at once? Is it possible? When is, if so, when? If not, then I have to address little by little in my individual capacity. When I address in my individual capacity, it becomes a social service action. I donate food, I donate clothing, I go and give my time, Shramadan, energy for some activity, service activity. They all are very useful and needed, but they have a limited impact on the world. But in spirituality, in what Nisargadatta Maharaj beautifully says, is you can't impact the entire world at the same time as a person. What does it mean? As a person, who is a person? A person who is identified with the body-mind complex is a person. Okay, a being identified with a body-mind complex is a person. So, when as a person, if we have to address and impact the world, then we can do it. It is to be done one at a time, little at a time, within our physical, mental, and intellectual capacities, and probably financial and energy capacities as well. But is there an alternate approach spiritually to impact the entire world at the same time? There is. If what I do or what I think, more especially what I think and feel, and what sadhana I do impacts consciousness, and there is a change, shift, transformation in consciousness, then the entire world is impacted at the same time, isn't it? Why? Because consciousness is shared, it is one for the entire world. Whereas if I address your physical needs, if I address your emotional needs, I'm addressing you in the individual capacity as an individual. If I address you, your neighbor is excluded. If I address your neighbor, my friend is excluded. At the physical, mental, emotional level. Whereas at the level of consciousness, the entire world is impacted at once. That is the power of prayer, of lokaha samastaha sukhino bhavantu. We may not realize it. It will go and touch consciousness, the purity of intent in the prayer, or our own purification of our mind and getting into a witness state and merging into the absolute. If one person is transformed, if I am transformed and realize my witness state, I lose my personhood, but the entire world gains out of the transformation in consciousness. From a personal consciousness to an individual consciousness. What does that mean? The person has merged into the witness, and the witness has merged into awareness. Only absolute remains. In the path of self-inquiry, we say only self remains. In the path of Vedanta, we say only Brahman remains. Thank you very much for your patient listening.